Hey, welcome everybody. Stephen here, live on Wisely Living yet again. Today, I'm excited to share with you 6 techniques to strengthen your core. Now, I want to be clear, this is not a video on how to get a six-pack. Believe it or not, a strong core is very beneficial, even if it's not visible. All right, so your core is tied into everything you do. It enhances your stability, it helps you maintain balance, as well as athletic performance, as well as reducing back pain. It also aids in injury prevention by aligning the body and protecting the joints during high impact activities. Additionally, supports everyday activities, just simple things like sitting, standing, turning, lifting. We all use that core area. Now, I know normally when you jump into a core fitness, you're expecting someone 20 fit and fabulous who already has a six-pack and 10% body fat. But those are not the people that need it. And there's a lot of research that shows though by overdeveloping those superficial muscles, it's actually more detrimental to your body than anything else. So we're going to focus on strengthening the core, not developing a six-pack. All right. So as we go through this, we're going to start really slow. We're going to start with some breath work, identifying the abdominal muscles, just so that you can kind of get an idea as to what we're working with today. But the idea is that you stop when it becomes too challenging. By starting slow and working our way up, this video is going to allow you to learn how to, take those steps to really strengthen the core. So I always suggest to people that you do what works for you and you just put the rest aside. So when we're talking about the core, again, it's not just the six-pack. I mean, it's several key muscle groups. So it is the rectus abdominis, which is that six-pack area. It's the transverse abdominis, which is going to be those deep abdominal muscles, as well as the obliques, and those are going to be those side muscles. And then in addition to that, the muscles of the lower back, the pelvic floor, and the hips. They all work together, and those are what provide stability, balance, and strength. So that's what we're going to be working on today. So starting in a chair, doesn't necessarily have to be a chair. If you can be on the side of a couch or sitting on your bed, but you want to make sure we don't have arms in the way. So no like dining room chairs or anything like that. And we're going to start with just basic breath awareness so we can identify and activate the stabilizing muscles. So the first thing I want you to do is sitting at the forward section of your chair so that we're not rounded. We're sitting up nice and tall. Knees are stacked over ankles. Knees are hips distance apart. I want you to start by just breathing. See if you can, before we get into breathing, I want you to just push your belly as far forward as you comfortably can. So I'm just pushing my belly out right now. And then I want you to pull it back in. Pushing it out, pulling it back in. So this is like step one. This is about as basic as we get. Now, what happens a lot of times when I tell people to push their belly out, they start with the chest. They're pushing their chest out to kind of cheat and get the belly out. So I want you to do 2 things. One, put your hand about an inch in front of your belly. And then the second one, put your hand in front of your chest. And the idea is that we don't want the upper hand. We don't want the chest to touch the upper hand, but we do want the belly to touch that lower hand. So start to push your belly out into the hand without moving your chest. And then we contract. Pull the stomach back, draw that navel in. And again, we push the belly into the palm, out moving the chest. We draw the stomach back. So continue to just kind of go back and forth on this, activating those abdominal muscles. So this is step one. And as this becomes more easy, we're going to start to incorporate the breath into our practice. So when we're incorporating the breath, obviously, in inhales we expand, and exhales we contract. So I'm going to move my hands. I know where I'm going with this. But if you found that as a useful tool, keep your hands up there. So we're going to start by breathing into the belly, sending it as far forward as you comfortably can. Exhaling, drawing that navel in, and pulling the belly back. So just keep that moving. Inhale, push the belly out. Exhale, draw the belly in. And if this is where you're at today and this is as far as you go, that's amazing. This is where you start to develop those tools. And the funny part is that people that have an undeveloped core a lot of times have it easier than people who have an overdeveloped core. Because when you have all that tightness right here, it's really hard to expand and contract. So once you start getting comfortable in those movements, and maybe you're there today, the next thing we want to do is start to work on incorporating all the other muscle groups that we talked. So when you push the belly out, I want you to focus on lifting that pelvic floor. I want you to engage the back. I want you to engage the obliques. So we're working on all of these muscles. So we're pushing the belly out. We're engaging the rest of the muscles. And then we're exhaling. We're drawing that navel in. We're releasing. Relaxing the pelvic floor. Releasing all the extra abdominal muscles. So pushing out and engaging. And this is going to be a little bit more advanced. That lifting. So it's almost like holding, like you have to go to the bathroom, and then releasing that you had to go to the bathroom. So it's that pushing out. You're holding it in. You're exhaling, you're pulling the belly back, and you're releasing those same types of muscles that you'd be holding if you didn't want to go to the bathroom. So that may be a little graphic, but it's the best way to visualize what we're doing here. And that gets to be a bit more advanced because there's a lot going on when you're engaging all those internal muscles. At the same point in time, you're guiding the belly back and forth. So as simplistic as it is, it's actually quite challenging when you move up through the different stages of this. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the chair. I want you to come on down to your back. And if getting onto the floor isn't going to work for you, you can do this in bed. You can do this on a couch. I'm going to come on down to a yoga mat. And we're going to do a bridge pose. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify those stabilizing muscles again, and the abdominal muscles. And then we're going to actually lift up into a bridge. So I want your feet to be slightly wider than your hips, heels right up towards the glutes. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to rock your pelvis forward, and then you're going to rock it back. So just gently back and forth, and you'll notice that core activation by just simply rocking the pelvis backwards and forwards. You're going to begin to notice. And again, this may not be where you're at. This may be too simplistic for you, and that's okay. We're going to get harder as we move on. But if you're getting a good stretch here and you're really feeling that core engagement, identifying into those deep core muscles, then keep doing this. Overall, it's just really good stretching. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to lift up into bridge. So keeping those feet planted, I want you to lift up as high as you can. I like to walk my shoulder blades under a little. And then we're going to slowly begin to release the spine. So it's just one vertebrae at a time, slow and controlled, releasing the spine back to the floor. And when that low back meets the mat, we're going to engage the core muscles. We're going to lift the hips high, and we're just going to hold it for just a few moments. And then again, it's a slow and controlled process as we release the spine back to the mat. And then we're going to go one last time. When that low back meets the mat, we lift high. We hold, engaging the core, and then slow and controlled as we release down. And that can be one of those things where you're just lifting up and down, just working on engaging the core and releasing the spine. And as you build the strength, you can go just a little bit further. So generally, when I'm doing this in my personal practice, I'm going anywhere between 20 and 30 seconds while I'm holding that, and then working down from there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to come on to hands and knees. So this is called a few different things. In PT, I have been through PT. I've injured myself enough. They call it bird dog. In yoga, we call it ruddy goose. So really, we're just going to start by coming into table pose. I've got my shoulders over my wrists. I've got my hips over my knees. My knees are hips distance apart. So it's starting with the simple opposite arm, opposite leg. So I'm lifting up my right arm and my left leg. And we want to do a little bit of a lift, but I don't want you to come here. And as we do this, I want you to push out through your heel. So you notice my foot is flexed. My palm is sideways. So I'm reaching out through my fingers. I'm pushing along through my heel. And it's that slight little lift. And that's how we're going to engage those abdominal muscles. And then we're going to go ahead and release right back down. We're going to switch sides. We're going to inhale up, left arm, right leg. We're reaching long through the fingers, pushing out through the heel, looking down at the mat so the head's in line with the spine. And there's just that slight lifting. Pretty simple stuff here. Depending upon where you're at, that could also be very challenging. I shouldn't undermine it and say it's simple because we're all at different points in our practice. And while that may be challenging for you, some of the other stuff might be a little bit easier. So the key points with that one is that we're lengthening from opposite sides, and it's that slight lift to engage the core. The next thing I want to show you is side plank. And a lot of people are very intimidated by coming into a side plank. The cool thing about side plank is there are so many different options with it. So we're going to go through a few. We can just start by putting the right palm down, shoulder stacked over wrist. I've got my back leg extended. So there's someone blowing leaves outside my window. So if you suddenly hear the, oh, it's not my stomach grumbling from lunch. There's a leaf blower right outside. The joys of going live. All right, anyways, so I've got my bottom leg stacked down here for stability. I'm going to lift that top arm, and I'm going to lift this hip up as I do it. Or you can kick that back leg back. So give myself like a little kickstand action here. Or the next step would be both legs extended, arm up. Just stacking the legs on top of each other. And again, we're lifting that hip to activate the core. And if you find that this gets a little too easy, you can draw the arm under and inhale up. So it's an exhale, drawing underneath the side ribs, inhale as we extend again. And much like I've said, probably repeating myself a lot, but I really want you to be aware of how we actually work with the core. So knowing that we're all at different levels, and that's what they're for, and remaining comfortably challenged and not pushing past that point, because that's where we get hurt, and then that's just a setback. All right, next thing we're going to do is a forearm plank. Sounds a bit more intimidating than it is, but we're going to bring the arms down. We're going to come onto the belly. And again, I got that nice 90 degrees. Fingers are spread out nice and wide. I'm going to tuck my toes and lift my hips. And if this is too challenging, we can drop the knees and just keep the chest lifted. So I'm up here. And again, I usually hold this for about 20 seconds. And there's a lot of different options where you can start to challenge the core. You can do opposite leg lifts. You can do little side steps out, off to the mat, back to the center, off to the mat, back to the center. And if you're feeling froggy, you can dip the hips to one side, back to center, hips off to the other side, back to center. So it's just a gently guiding the hips back and forth. And you're going to notice that last one. Whew! Talk about core engagement. You're definitely going to feel it. All right, so this last one, this is going to be number 6. This is going to be by far the most challenging. You are certainly, I'm not even going to have to point out where you're going to feel this. You're going to feel your core activate. So I want you to come all the way down to your belly. This is called locust pose. So we're going to bring the arms long out in front of you. And as you inhale, I want you to lift arms, legs, and chest. Now that's pretty difficult. A slightly easier version is arms along your sides, and we lift arms, legs, and chest. And again, when we're holding these, I'm going to want you to hold it anywhere between 10 and 20 seconds. And working up to longer points of time. That's really what this is about. And unlike a lot of different muscles, the core is something you can work on every single day. So if you felt a good challenge just by doing that one at the chair, you can do that at your kitchen table, you can do it at your office desk. We can start working and training the core, and you're going to notice benefits quite quickly. And the core is something that we can strengthen. And as I mentioned, like just ties into every aspect of your life. So there we go. Hopefully this information was helpful for you. Work on your core. I can't say it enough. I always tell people in my class, strong core, strong yoga, but it's also like strong life. So don't worry about the beach muscles, all those superficial things that people tend to work on. This is probably the most important muscle group that you can work on. So thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed today's content, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up or like our channel. I'm assuming you have already, but if you haven't, please go ahead and like our channel. Remember that we love hearing your thoughts, so please leave comments below. Your suggestions are how, and just the feedback in general, that's how we create content that you love and find useful. Remembering, more than anything, your journey is unique. We're here to support you every step of the way. Geez, I'm tongue-tied today. Either that's here on YouTube or at wiselyliving.media. Until next time, stay mindful, stay active, stay balanced. Take care.